Hey guys, it's Nikolai Pavlov with Power BI tips and tricks. In my last video we looked at the calculate function, and I thought we should spend a bit more time with calculate because it's such an important and powerful function in DAX. But then I realized we haven't talked about the iterator functions, which are SUMX, COUNTX, and AVERAGEX. The last two functions are not very commonly used, but you'll be definitely using SUMX a lot in all of your Power BI reports. So let's take a closer look at it. The syntax is actually very simple. It only has two parts, table and expression, and all of them, SUMX, COUNTX, and AVERAGEX, they have the same syntax. In this case, expression can be a certain calculation. We're going to take a closer look at expression using examples, because expression is evaluated for each row of the table. Can be a pretty confusing statement. So let's jump into Power BI. Here I have summer sales in two Canadian cities, Calgary and Vancouver. And I have three car types, and each car has a different price. These are completely random numbers I made up, so they got nothing with real life. But for our example, it's going to be enough. All right, so first things first, let's rename our table to SalesTable. Now let's take a look at our table and think what kind of calculations we could do. Well, first of all, we could multiply the column price by the column quantity to find out sales. Now, we could do this in two different ways. The first and the easiest way is to create a calculated column. So to do that, we will simply go to the modeling tab, and then under the modeling ribbon, we'll find new column. And let's name it revenue sales calculated column, and it will be equal to, we'll multiply the price column by quantity column. Simple as that. This is very similar to Excel. We have a new column where the columns price and quantity have been multiplied row by row. Remember, in one of my previous videos I said that calculated columns are very similar to Excel in a way that they can understand the row context. As you can see, right, each row of each column, right, have been multiplied. So 5,000, 50,000 was multiplied by 4, and we have 200,000. And then 35,000 was multiplied by 2, we got 70,000. And it did this for all the rows that I have. I only got 47 rows. So for all the 47 rows, each matching row of each column was multiplied, right? So it's easy. And now we can go back and build a simple table here. We're going to throw in car type and sales. Let's make this a bit bigger. I don't like this too small. All right, so we can see here that we have a table here, simple table, and where the calculated column actually understands the filter context, and it was able to find out a total for each car type. Let's take a look at something else. Let's create a simple measure sum of revenue. This is going to be a simple function sum. We already know this formula, and where I'll be summing a column sales, right? Yes, sales CC. I have created this measure here, sum of revenue, and as you can see, it's exactly the same thing. What the function sum did, if we go back to the data look, it simply summed this column. So all of these numbers have been summed, and we have this number here. Now you might be asking, why do we need SUMX and what's that, right? So let's think about this. Imagine we have a big data set with a lot of columns. Creating calculated columns is not a best practice. So whenever you're trying to do calculations, try to avoid creating extra calculated columns unless you absolutely have to do this. Using measures is actually a preferred way of building a data model and doing calculations because they're not taking up extra CPU. What I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to delete this column right here. So I'm just going to right click and delete. And then go back to the report view. Obviously the sum of revenue, the measure sales table is not working anymore because the column has been deleted, right? But we're going to fix it. And instead of actually using a sum function here, let me make this a little bit bigger. Instead of using the sum function, we're going to be using SUMX function. The first parameter is table, so I'm just going to indicate my table, sales, easy, right? Expression is a little bit confusing, but try to follow me here. What I'm going to do is I am going to go to this table here, and I will be multiplying the column price by the column quantity for each row. Just like I created a calculated column, but I'm not going to be doing this. I'm going to be making a measure. Okay, if we go back, click on this measure, and in this table, let's do that. We're going to be multiplying price, the column price, by the column quantity here. All right, commit. And now if we deleted the old measure here, we have exactly the same number. Let's take a look at the syntax again. The first parameter is we indicated the table within which we'll be iterating a certain expression. And then we multiplied the column price by the column quantity within this table. What the SUMX function did, it went to this table and then it multiplied the column price by the column quantity for each row. And then in the back end, we got a bunch of numbers. And then these numbers finally were summed. So we ended up having this big number. Excel users will probably understand this better if I showed this in Excel, the logic of the calculation. So let's go to Excel. So this is the same file I got, right? So what happened, what SUMX did, as a first step, SUMX multiplied the column price by the column quantity. This was our expression part, the second part in our formula, right? Once it calculated these numbers, it kept these numbers for each row somewhere in the memory. And then as a second step, what happened was that the sum part now came into play, and then it summed the whole column, and then we got this number 6,800,000. Same number here. So we found out that SUMX is kind of a two-step formula, right? First, what it does is it multiplies the expression, and then it sums the results of all these expressions into one number. And so that's exactly what happened here. The benefit of this, of using the iterator functions, is that in this case, right, in our case, we didn't have to create the revenue column. So our model is the same size. All right, that's it for today. Hopefully you understood the logic behind the SUMX function and how powerful it could be in certain situations. And I'll see you guys later. If you like my video, please subscribe and have a great day.